All right. So today is our third session of our family engagement programs. And again, I want to stress that students are absolutely welcome to join us at these sessions. We have one more final one next Tuesday, February 9th at 7 p.m. and that's about spring programming. So we actually have a host of people joining us for that particular session. And again, I'm recording all of these and posting them on a variety of places. If for some reason you can't find them, totally don't worry about it. We will post it on the Facebook page, or just feel free to email me and I'll get that over to you. So we are going to get started today about our with our counseling services staff. So we have our director, Ruth Larson, and our staff therapist, Maggie McCurdy. Thank you for the waves. Also joining us is Dean Lombard. We will have her in the chat, but if you have questions, we can happily unmute and go over that at the end of the presentation. And again, feel free to use the chat. If there's a question that comes up as we are having them present, we will either get it in the moment or definitely get it at the end. And just make sure that you have your microphones muted. And if you do want to ask a question out loud at the end, we welcome that. To hear your voice is totally fine. So I see two more in the waiting room. So I like this audience. Thank you. Some of your names are familiar and I appreciate your engagement back with us. All right. Well, I will turn it over to Ruth and Maggie.
Thank you, Laura. So Laura will be forwarding the slides for us tonight. And so I just wanted to start with introducing myself, and I'll have Maggie introduce herself. So my name is Ruth Larson. I'm the Director of Counseling Services at ESF. And I have been at ESF for 4.5 years. And I wanted Maggie to introduce herself. And Laura, can you forward to the next slide?
Hi everyone, I'm Maggie McCurdy. I'm a staff therapist here at ESF Counseling Services. I have been here for about 2 years. Previously, I come from other higher ed institutions where I worked in counseling centers. So I'm really excited to be here with all of you tonight and talk about our services here at ESF.
Thank you, Maggie. So one of the things that we most do at in counseling services is provide one-on-one individual counseling to our students, and our services are free of charge to all students who are registered in the current semester. And we do relatively short-term solution-focused counseling at ESF, and if any students need or want longer-term counseling than that, we can definitely refer them out to counselors in the community. But we are more than happy to work with our students, and we are in the process of hiring a third counselor who will take care of our substance abuse and alcohol and substance abuse, use and misuse issues. My specialty areas are grief and loss, LGBTQIA+ issues, and trauma. And Maggie, do you want to say your specialty areas, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a specialty area in working with people with body image issues and eating disorders. And I also have extensive work with LGBTQIA individuals, particularly individuals who identify as transgender.
Thanks, Maggie. And Laura, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so college students experience a number of stressors during their time at an organization, and we just kind of want to cover some of the main ones that we hear from students. We often get students who come to us with conflicts with their roommates or their housemates if they're living off campus. And so we definitely need to talk about communication strategies, assertiveness, having boundaries. Many students come to college without ever having a roommate at home before. So living and sharing a small space with a person can have its challenges. So that is one of the things that many students come and talk with us about. Many students come to college with expectations of how they think college is going to go. We always want to gently remind students that ESF is a difficult program, and we want our students to shine, and we want to help as much as possible for them to come into their own and be comfortable in their atmosphere, but we are a hard institution. So there may be expectations, and specifically with online education, that maybe it's going to be easier, and it's not. And so we do want to make sure that students come with some realistic expectations of what kind of amount of time that they're going to need to study and participate in class and do those things. It's important for our students to come to campus with some ideas about how they want to approach alcohol and alcohol use, about nutrition and exercise at home. They may have had people preparing meals and doing meal planning and grocery shopping and all of those kinds of things. And now we have students who, in essence, need to feed themselves, and they may have some difficulties with that. So we see students all the time kind of getting into fast foods and quick fixes, and their health suffers from that. And sleep tends to be one of the things that is the first to fall off when we think about college students and trying to balance all of these things that they need to balance at any given time. It's almost always sleep is the first thing that kind of goes out the window. And we see a lot of difficulties with that. So we always want to make sure that we talk with our students about getting enough sleep, that can't be something that they are running a deficit on, because it definitely affects their schoolwork and their mental health. Students also can experience homesickness. Not all students do, but a good number do. So we want to make sure that we can help students really try to bring home to campus with them. So things that remind them of home. Sometimes they're going to need to have maybe little goodie boxes or gift boxes sent to them. Checking in with your students and seeing if they're leaving their room and getting out and meeting friends and talking with people and those kinds of things is interesting and important for your students, so that they can feel like they're home here at ESF as well. Money. College students are sent credit card offers regularly from credit card companies who want to, in essence, ruin your students' credit. And so having some good conversations about money with your students is really an important thing. And establishing a budget and helping your students establish a budget is important. And then the last thing, it's not the last thing it's the last thing on the list, but it shouldn't be the last thing, is time management, priorities, and organization. That is something that can be really difficult for young people to do, especially if they've had parents or guardians or family members kind of organize their schedule, make sure they get things in on time and those kinds of things. In college, a professor can hand them a syllabus with all of their assignments on it, and they may not bring up an assignment for the rest of the semester and just expect that it be done. And that is definitely not the way that most high schools are run. So these kinds of stressors are normal, and these are things that we often see in our students. So why do students come to counseling? So Laura, if you can move the slide, please. Thank you. So this is a variety of reasons why students come into counseling, and we feel really adept at dealing with these issues, among others. Many of our students are first generation college students, and so the parents or family members or guardians may not have had a chance to kind of talk with them about what things. Oh, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I went down and looked at the chat for a second. My apologies. So the first year of college can be really difficult. Oh, I know what I was saying. If parents or guardians didn't attend college, they may not know how to best prepare their students. And so the staff at Centen talk with students all the time about kind of adjusting and knowing things to expect. Career services, tutoring. We have so many resources within ESF and student affairs that can really help your students. I think about student affairs as all the things outside of the classroom. And so we want to make sure that we offer as many supports to the student as possible. So not just counseling, but other issues as well. So as I said earlier, we have relatively short-term solution-focused counseling. We have some students who come in for one session. They maybe are concerned about a friend. If your student comes to you and says, hey, I'm worried about my roommate or my housemate or my friend, and I don't know what to do, they seem really depressed or they're really isolating, they can call us. We can help give them some tools for reaching out to their friend. That is something that is absolutely part of the work that we do on a college campus. We offer programming and outreach services as well, but for the most part, we do individual counseling. Laura, can you go to the next slide? So when a student reaches out to us, we try to do kind of what's called a triage. And many people are familiar with that. So we try to determine, is this person coming in for regular level counseling, or is this more of an urgent situation, or is this a crisis situation? So the first person that they speak to will be taking care of that information. They're going to gather that, they're going to set an appointment for your student and get them scheduled. There's also going to be some paperwork sent that talks about video counseling. That's the platform we're using for this semester and the last semester as well. So we're doing all of our counseling through video counseling. So there's some paperwork that needs to be done to make sure that they know what to expect. Covers confidentiality. It covers, how to have the best technical connection and those kinds of things. During the intake session, the first meeting with the counselor, and sessions are about 45 to 50 minutes long. Sometimes at the end of counseling, a person can the appointments can either get spread apart a little bit, or they can move to 30-minute appointments. So for the most part, they're 45 to 50 minutes long. During that first appointment with the counselor will be asking a lot of questions. So we ask questions like about family history and developmental history, academic history, medical history. We ask some trauma questions, we ask some safety questions, and then we just kind of go over the paperwork that the student filled out. We want students to come to counseling and use their 45 or 50 minutes to the best of their ability. So we like it when students come knowing what they're going to talk about. We want students to know that it's their time, that they get to talk about what they want to talk about or need to talk about. We often give homework because we know that 50 minutes a week or 50 minutes every other week isn't quite going to make some of the big changes that students may want to do. So we do give homework to make sure that they are making those improvements and those changes that they want to make in their life. And as I said earlier, we do offer referrals to folks out in the community. Maggie, can you tell us about confidentiality, please?
Absolutely. So in counseling, therapy, again, these terms can be interchangeable depending on who's talking. We prioritize confidentiality. So what a client says in counseling remains within the counseling session and remains within tightly held notes. There are some technicalities related to individuals who are younger coming into college, say 17, about to turn 18. Those individuals will need consent from their parent or guardian to begin counseling with us. However, that does not mean that the parent or guardian has access to everything discussed in counseling, or that they will have access to records or anything like that. But otherwise, individuals over 18 do not need permission to start counseling and will have confidentiality held up as our utmost priority. There are some barriers to confidentiality, which include imminent, clear suicidal statements without the ability to plan for safety. So what this means is that a client comes into our office and they express that they're experiencing suicidal thoughts with intent to harm themselves, with the ability to carry out that plan that they may have had to harm themselves in such a way, and to be blunt, to kill themselves. That is the goal of these steps that they're taking. So if that is to happen, then we will need to step outside of the bounds of confidentiality and make sure that your student, our client, is safe, which usually means hospitalization. If they are able to work with us to create a safety plan, a check-in plan for the next day, then potentially hospitalization does not have to happen, which is our goal always. We do not want to hospitalize our clients. We do not want to have to send them to the hospital. We want to keep them safe within our ESF community. So that is our priority when we experience, when we are with students who are experiencing suicidal thoughts. And just to note, this does not mean that if someone comes into our office and says, I've had some thoughts, but are very clearly not intending on acting on them, we want them to feel safe talking with us about that. We want them to feel safe talking with us about any potential self-harm concerns that they might have, or behaviors that they are engaging in. So again, this is imminent, clear statements without the ability to keep themselves safe with intent to harm themselves. In addition, clear homicidal statements without the ability to plan for safety. Again, that one is pretty self-evident. If they are identifying whom they would want to harm, in what way and when, then we will obviously have to get authorities involved. Credible terroristic threats, again, a little bit self-explanatory. So again, with that, it's the same kind of concept as clear homicidal statements. Intent, desire, ability, and specific identified individuals whom they plan to harm. And the last barrier to confidentiality would be knowledge of or reporting of child or elder abuse, or including disabled people's abuse. So if someone reports to us that they are aware of this actively happening, we are mandated reporters as counselors. So this means that we will have to report this to authorities. As therapists, our goal is to be as transparent as possible. So if your student, our client, says to us that this is happening, we will talk them through the process and make sure that it is transparent as possible. However, it is something that we will have to do, but we will not do without talking with our client and letting them know that it is occurring. All right, next slide, please. All right, so hours and location. As I'm sure with most businesses and such, location has changed drastically since the pandemic started. We are in 105 Bray. Why am I forgetting where our office is? 110 Bray. Okay. Obviously, I haven't been in the office in a long time. So we are in 110 Bray, and we have counseling services available Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. Currently, we are doing online telehealth. So our therapy is conducted via video platform in a secure platform. So we will have your students sent a link. We will have it. Thank you, Dean Lombard. We will have your student sent a link to the appointment, and they will click the link, be sent into our virtual waiting room, and we will start the therapy session from there. Appointments must be scheduled. So as the phone number you can see, 315-470-6660, if you would like to begin counseling. We also have a 24/7, 365 days a year crisis line. Again, listed 315-470-4716, that is answered by something called Protocol, which is a service that has trained, licensed therapists responding to our students. They know about our ESF community, and then they directly send the messages to our email. So that is another way that a student could get in touch with us if, say, they aren't able to call that 6660 number during the course of a business day. We do still have crisis hours at 10 and 2. So prior to the pandemic, these were called crisis walk-in hours. So if someone was having an acute emotional reaction to something or had experienced something that was really disturbing, they would be able to come in and we would have a therapist available with those 2 hours blocked off to support those students. We still are creating time for that, despite the fact that we're via video counseling. And we know that crises are not limited to 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. However, these are dedicated times where someone can come in and speak to us about something that's troubling them. If any of your students are ever experiencing active suicidal ideation, they can come into our office or request an urgent appointment, and we will make that work. However, this is identified for people that are able to wait for these 2-hour sections to speak with somebody in the case of an emergency or urgent issue. All right, and again, the location is 110 Bray at the bottom of that slide that I didn't see when I started talking. So again, once we're back to normal, we will be in 110 Bray and happy to see our clients face to face. All right, so counseling can help in a variety of ways. A lot of counseling is process oriented. So that means that we discuss the situation that your student is going through. We collaborate on solutions, as Ruth said, solution-focused orientation to helping them address their situations, such as difficulty setting boundaries in a relationship, experiencing acute anxiety during test taking, potentially having some trauma from the past that they feel empowered to work on at this time. And because as therapists, our goal is, and our imperative is to be objective, it can be beneficial for students to come in and speak with us and have somebody completely outside of the situation to maybe help them navigate feelings and thoughts associated to what they're going through. We always encourage self-care skills that are healthy and sustainable, and also work within the context of the student's life. So as Ruth mentioned, ESF can be a bit rigorous. So what we try to do is work with students with where they're at and help them identify ways in which they can take better care of themselves to be able to function not only academically, but also interpersonally. And as always, again, learning assertive communication and boundaries. Being in the 18 to 22-year-old set, there's a lot of learning about yourself, learning about how you relate to other people, and learning about what you want from interpersonal relationships. So we can definitely help with identifying ways that students can assert themselves, communicate their needs, and set appropriate boundaries with individuals that might be crossing them. Right, next slide. Perfect. All right, so students don't reach out for a variety of issues. One of the main issues is that there might be a difficulty identifying that there is a problem. So students may think, well, of course I'm anxious. Everybody on this campus is anxious. The normalization of stress and busyness. So while yes, there is a level of stress and busyness associated with being a college student, that doesn't necessarily mean that the feelings of anxiety or pressure or distress will have to be a normal part of the client's daily life. Stigma, luckily, I believe, is kind of reducing as time goes on. We are very fortunate that a lot of our clients are able to express that they are in therapy and recommend their friends to therapy, and all of that is wonderful. But that doesn't mean that individuals that are from different cultural backgrounds or believe that they should be able to handle things on their own or would feel ashamed of admitting that they need help wouldn't experience stigma. Not knowing available resources, which is why we're here with you today. We're trying to express that this is something available to your students, and also other resources that we can help lead them to. So, for example, we've had clients come in and say, I am really anxious, and we'll speak with them about it. And it turns out what they need truly is a tutoring schedule. They need support academically in order to reduce that anxiety. So we will be able to help students navigate where they need to go, because you don't know what you don't know. And that's often the case with our clients. Busy schedule, self-explanatory, which is why we acknowledge that not everybody is always able to fit in like a Monday at 11. So we try to be as flexible as possible, which is where the half-hour sessions also come in. It's not as long, but it does allow students with very limited time frames to at least seek support and have support be given to them in a place that makes sense for their schedule. Past experiences. Many of our clients have had experiences that have been negative with therapists in the past. And that is quite common and unfortunate. However, it can be a barrier for them to be looking for a different experience with a therapist. They may also feel like there isn't a benefit to counseling. If I can't figure it out myself, how is someone else who doesn't know me going to help me figure it out? Which is where that objectiveness comes in again, and the importance of understanding how therapists need to be objective and are objective for the benefit of our clients. And individuals who identify as male are much less likely to seek help than females. That's related to misogyny and toxic masculinity, and the fact that men seeking help has been identified as a sign of weakness. So we try to strongly encourage people to, parents, guardians, family members, to speak to their male identifying students about the fact that they are allowed to have emotions. They deserve a space to speak about those emotions, and they are valid in what they're experiencing, and they deserve help just as much as any other gender. Okay, so some positive coping strategies. There's quite a lot listed here, and I'm not going to go through all of them because I know all of you can see them. But the reason that we kind of even narrow these down to things as simple as talk to a friend, pet a dog, take a nap, is because I think sometimes students underestimate the benefit of these simple positive coping strategies. For example, a lot of time I will encourage my clients to completely clean up their physical space, make your bed, reorganize your desk, do your laundry. And that idea of just cleaning up your physical space often leads to cleaning your mental space, feeling cleaned up. So when we think about positive coping strategies, we want to start at the very simplest level. Listen to music, watch a funny video on YouTube, write a list, talk to a friend. These do not have to be heavy or intensive. They can be very simple and in the moment. So when we talk to our students or our clients about ways to calm themselves, center themselves, and self-soothe, we want things to be simple because a lot of things aren't simple right now in their lives as college students. So positive coping strategies, we will help teach them that are ways that are not going to add to their plate, but are ways that are going to really be beneficial and easy for them to engage in. I'm going to hand it back to Ruth, I think, at this point.
Sure. Maggie gets the positive coping strategies and I get the negative coping strategies. So we see a wide variety of negative coping strategies on our campus, as I'm sure every college campus across the nation is seeing. The COVID-19 pandemic has increased isolation significantly, loneliness. We are seeing the mental health effects throughout the country because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so one of the first things that we hear from people concerned about a student is that they're starting to withdraw or isolate. There's, at times students will get to the point where they stop attending classes. They just don't leave their rooms. They're turning down invitations, to go to the dining hall when that gets to be possible. So that's the first thing that we often see students do. In counseling, we hear a lot about procrastination. We definitely see a connection between procrastination and perfectionism that we work with students on. We see students, again, like I've said before, lacking sleep. They try to do all-nighters, and we really try to talk with our students about not pulling all-nighters. We do know that there are some students who that is the way that they work, and that is one of their strategies. And so we've developed a video that is on our website called The Anatomy of an All-Nighter, where we give tips to make an all-nighter more successful if a student does need to do one of those every now and then. But we also have students who sleep too much. So that is one of the symptoms of depression. The thing about depression is some people can sleep too much and other people can sleep too little. And so we're always looking for those kinds of things. Some students, when they get to college, start experimenting with drugs and alcohol. And so that can definitely be a negative coping strategy if that is how they're dealing with stress. Because if they drink or use drugs every time they experience stress, that's going to cause a problem. Maggie is, one of her specialty areas is eating disorders and body image. disturbances. And we see college students, college students are kind of the main population of people who develop body image eating disorder issues. And so we do start seeing people who are either comfort eating or emotional eating, or the students who are not eating, they're skimping, and not due to money issues, but they're skimping because they want to lose weight. They start getting really worried about their appearance and feeling uncomfortable. So we definitely look for those things. I'm sure everyone in the audience knows about hooking up and what that means, but we do see some of that as a negative coping strategy with students. And so that is something that we are definitely interested in talking with students about and seeing how they can be safer in their relationships. And the last two, we do see self-harm. There are people who self-harm when they are stressed. And I'm going to just do a very quick educational piece that not everyone who cuts or self-harms are suicidal, and not everyone who is suicidal cuts or self-harms, but we do care and are very concerned about both of those behaviors. And so we want to make sure that we are seeing students who do the cutting and self-harming behaviors, or any students who have suicidal thoughts or have made attempts in the past. One of the things on college campuses is that we do suicide prevention trainings every semester. And so I want to make sure that people know that that's coming up. I think I put this down in my notes. The next suicide prevention training program is coming up on February 10th, and it's at 11 a.m. And so I just want to make sure that we know, that our community is raising our awareness about suicide prevention. We are getting our students, staff, and faculty members trained in suicide prevention. And so we want to make sure that you know that we're doing those things on our campus. So the next section we're going to talk about is self-care for your student. Okay, I think, did we skip a page? There we go. Thank you, Laura. Okay, so again, we have a number of resources for our students. The Academic Success Center / tutoring. There are advisors. We have the Writing Center. We have a public speaking lab, math clinic. We have the English speakers of other languages, counseling services, career services, and many others. So we want to make sure that your student knows about all of their resources. It's important for our students to set realistic goals and to know what their sphere of influence is. So first I want to address the realistic goals. If I had $1 for every time a student came into ESF saying, I'm going to get all A's, I would be a really wealthy woman. And I'm not sure getting all A's at ESF is a realistic expectation or a realistic goal. And so making sure students come in with realistic expectations, that they are not going to maybe have a huge friend group within the first week. They may not have the greatest schedule, especially first-year students. We want to make sure that the goals that they set are achievable. Most people know about what SMART goals are. So SMART goals are, I think they're short-term. They are, you can gauge them, you can measure them. And so I think that's really important. The sphere of influence, when we talk about sphere of influence, that means out in the world, there are so many things happening right now. If we look at the environment, if we look at politics, if we look at at race relations, those kinds of things. There's a lot of things going out into the world. And over the last year or so, we have been hearing students talk about their anxiety about things that are out there in the world, or for like after college. What's my life going to be like after college? And we need to kind of help them think about their sphere of influences. What do they have the ability to influence right now? So for your first year students, thinking about after college is not something that's in their sphere of control or sphere of influence. So trying to think about, if they're worried about outside events, what small things can they do to make way in that is something that we kind of have to work with young people with. We want our students to be getting adequate sleep. We want our students to be mindful of screen time. And in the age of COVID-19, we're all on our screens all the time. We are always in front of a screen, it seems like. And so it's hard to tell that to our students, to spend less time on their screen when maybe that's the only time they're able to be social. So keep that in mind as well. Try to remind your students to do their self-care plans, to stop and breathe, to go out and be in nature, those kinds of things that are really important for our students. We want students to be able to think about a day at a time, and to I try to call it like little nuggets of joy. Like every day I try to find a little nugget of joy that brightens my day, that lifts my spirits, that makes me smile. We also, in February, this is the month that we do random acts of kindness for others. And so we want that to flow through our campus. We want that kind of a campus where people are doing random acts of kindness for each other. And then remind your students that instead of quitting, to take breaks, that there's no harm in, I need 10 minutes before I go on to this next assignment, or I need 30 minutes, before I start writing that paper. I'm going to do 2 hours worth of homework, and then I'll start on the next thing. It's important that our students know how to take breaks, because they tend to like plow straight ahead until they like almost break down, and then they crash in bed and sleep, and they wake up and they try to do it again tomorrow. And maybe if they sometimes just rested a bit and hit the reset button, they would be doing well. I've heard from Amelia Hoffman, who's our academic success coordinator. She talks about the Pomodoro method, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Pomodoro method. So that is setting a timer for maybe 25 minutes and, working, doing homework. And then when that timer goes off, set the timer for 5 minutes, look on YouTube, text friends, those kinds of things. And then that timer goes off, set the timer again, back to work. That is a good success strategy from Amelia Hoffman in our tutoring office. And the last one is advice for supporting your student. So these are things that we want to make sure, thank you, Laura, that we wanted to put down for you. So supporting a college student can be difficult. They are going to be focused. Their time is going to be taken in classes and doing homework. So know that they are going to be busy, but we also really want to make sure that you stay connected with your student. So during these early months of your student being in college, talk with them about like maybe what is your expectation of how often and how frequently you communicate? Because you may have an idea that you talk every day, and your student may have an idea that you talk every month, once a month, or vice versa. Your student may say, I need to talk with you every day, and you may think you have work to do it. We'll check in with you in a month. So have those conversations about how you want to handle connections. How frequently do you want them to come home, or if they're able to come home, or if they're safe to come home during the COVID-19? These are really tough conversations to have. Help them learn those skills with time management and prioritization, asking for help and setting goals, and bouncing back after a challenge. Many times ESF counseling services, we get busy after that first test of the semester. And so they may not get the grade that they were hoping for. And so that doesn't mean that they're a failure. That doesn't mean that they're not cut out for ESF. It doesn't mean that they don't belong here. It just means that they need to kind of reevaluate and maybe ask for help and try some different studying techniques. But that first test is really a difficult point for many of our students. And so if you can help them pass through that and pass that, I think that would go a really long way. We are so excited that your student and your family chose ESF, and Maggie and I want to take as good a care as your student as we can possibly do in counseling services. We want to help them be as successful as possible. And so that is what we want to offer you today. One more thing. Counseling Services collaborates with the Office of Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity for Safe Zone trainings. Safe Zone trainings are a way for people to learn how to become better allies for our students, staff, and faculty members on campus who identify as LGBTQIA+. And so if your student has any interest in that we have those offered several times a semester. Thank you, Laura. I'm guessing that we may have some questions. We would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Ruth and Maggie and Dean Lombard, for being here. I know that there was just a few comments in the chat, so hopefully you've seen them about the link to the video on the All-Nighter. So thank you for sharing that, Dean Lombard. And then some of the counseling resources in the webpage. Thank you for asking that and sharing that, and Dean Lombard and Maggie. Someone had suggested also Flora. I don't know what Flora is, so I was just asking about that. But yeah, feel free. I know that a couple of folks have left, and that's totally fine. You're welcome to unmute. We're a small group and ask your question, or we can put it in the chat. But I do want to again thank Ruth and Maggie for the overview of counseling services and what you've been seeing. I think that's really helpful. So I can't imagine being a student also during a pandemic. So, and I think that they're overall, doing a good job considering. So thank you.
It's incredible. It's incredible that they're here and they want to learn despite COVID-19. Yeah, it's incredible.
So if anyone has any also strategies that maybe are working for our students, or that besides Flora, I really appreciate that, Mary Ellen. Is there anything else that you want to share that maybe is working for your student, and advice we can give to the other families? Because I know everyone has different strategies. ESF, I feel like I have heard a lot of students saying, we want to go herping. So that's, the collection of or study of amphibians and reptiles that the Herpetology Club does. So it's nice to see our outlets are so different and very specific to ESF. I will say that there are a couple of questions or comments. So with the meet and greet type thing. So Terry, to answer that question, we have next week, we're actually going to talk about programming for spring. We hope to do more of that. We've actually been doing some for our new students, and we haven't had a ton participate, but those who have seem to have enjoyed it. But we don't necessarily have a plan to do a meet and greet, but more just events to see who wants to come. And I think all of our students and employees do a good job of kind of doing introductions when it's in a manageable group. So I hope that helps, but I don't know if we would do a full-on meet and greet, because that could be a lot of people and social distancing, but certainly those who want to come, I think, we're finding more and more who want that. So and then I'll move on to the other questions. Are you offering in-person counseling this semester? And also, what kind of outreach is the counseling office doing? So if you want to answer those two questions that are in the chat, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. Our counseling this semester will be online, and we're hoping that fall, pandemic will be over. We'll be back in the office and seeing people in person. But for right now, we are definitely doing everything via video. Our outreach programming, typically we have a lot of really good programs that we do. We've had to revamp several of those things. So what we're doing is we're doing the suicide prevention training. We're doing a lot of Instagram kind of educational pieces for folks. So we've had things on eating disorder, body image, boundaries. We're going to be talking about thinking errors and just different informational pieces to it. But typically in a semester, we bring therapy dogs to the campus at least once. And that is one of the biggest hits with our students. We usually get about 200 students in to just see, these therapy dogs and just cuddle with them and love on them. And that is really a popular one. So if this semester we start kind of coming out of the pandemic and we start being able to have kind of on campus type of activities, that would be one of the first things we would want to do, is bring that back, because it is just such a big hit. But we do, like in March, we have done a bake sale for Women's History Month, and the donations of the funds that we raised went to help fund a woman in another country get some education and training so she can better support her family. So we've done that for the past 3 years. And as soon as we can, I would love to get that back and going, because bake sales on college campuses are a big hit. They can make a lot of money. So we would definitely want to, as soon as we can, we want to start doing more of our outreach programming on campus. But right now, there's going to be a lot of Instagram kind of educational pieces.
And if you're looking for our Instagram handle, it's at ESF Counseling.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you for those answers, Ruth. And in particular, a question came up about activities that can be done during the pandemic. So I think that beyond counseling services, I might assume you're asking, Maria, but we are trying to, that will be next week's session too, of all the programming we're trying to do or will be doing. Some are just too big to do in person, like our annual spring career fair that will have to be done virtually. There's, hundreds of people and typically 90 to 100 employers. It's just not possible to bring people in for that. But we are working hard at doing more programming in person. We already have scheduled some movie nights. Clubs have been working with us to make sure that their safety plan is. A big thing that's different from spring, that's better for spring, I'd say, is that we are doing weekly surveillance COVID testing. So that does help with having students, we'll still always have safety planning, masks have to be worn, and we have to follow the county guidelines, but certainly that will just, I think, add more layer of protection is the weekly COVID test. So I hope that helps, but I know that we are continually meeting and we'll even do some programming on our 2 set wellness days. I always forget the March date, but Tuesday in March, end of March 23rd. I'll have Dean Lombard put it on the chat, and then also Wednesday, April 21st, and that's during Earth Week. So we will definitely have more programming in place. Again, we hope that the numbers are good and continue to stay good. But as you may have seen with the outbreak after the holidays, we definitely want to, proceed with caution, but we'll be optimistic. More and more people are getting the vaccine too. And in terms of what about the different clubs that give the students a sense of camaraderie? Again, we are working with our clubs. A lot of clubs did struggle in the fall. We had a little more, caution in the fall. We had some more numbers on the rise at SU, and our county went into orange. So clubs struggled a little bit with kind of figuring out what can they do. They didn't want to just simply go virtually. A lot of clubs have, again, herping in the, virtually doesn't really work. Have a carrot. So please have a carrot. Mommy, please have a carrot. Sorry about that. I am a mom of 3 children. So thank you, Dean Lombard.
I can do another little bit of a shameless plug for our wonderful ESF Choose Action Network programming. So while it is not in person, we are doing healthy relationship messaging and education this month. So their handle is at ESF Choose Action Network. And we, it's coordinated with counseling and the Office of International Education and Choose Action Network. We are doing some programming about healthy relationships to oneself, to others, boundary setting, and people can go in and comment their answers to our prompts, and then their answers may be featured on our subsequent post. So for the month of February, we're doing some programming there. And I just think, that's a good way to get involved and maybe feel like your students are being part of the conversation. So I just wanted to plug that as well.
All right, thank you all so much. I think we addressed everything that came in. Thanks to Dean Lombard for putting in the 2 dates as well. So Tuesday, March 23rd, and then Wednesday, April 21st. If there aren't any more questions, maybe I could just give our staffs a quick takeaway, one final piece of advice. And we'll start with Ruth, Maggie, and then Dean Lombard.
I will say sleep, making sure that students get enough sleep, that studies show that depression can get significantly worse with lack of sleep. And so I just want to make sure that everybody gets enough sleep. It's so healthy. It's good for our bodies and our minds.
Mine would be to remind your students that counseling doesn't have to be a commitment. It can be, I'm going to give this a shot. So it's another resource. It's nothing that anyone has to commit to long-term. It's just something to see if it works, especially if your student's skeptical. And while we cannot give out information related to specific clients, we are always happy to take phone calls from family or loved ones to do some consultation.
Oh, there we go.
And so again, we're happy to do consultation with family members or loved ones without doing any personal disclosures. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us, and we are happy to consult with you as well.
I think what I would add to both of those good pieces of advice from Ruth and Maggie would be to remind your students that they are not alone in this, that there are programs and resources and supports for them all across campus, that we in student affairs are happy to help them get connected to. We are a resource for them, but we can't always know when a student is struggling. And particularly in this COVID environment, we don't always know when they're struggling, and our students don't always know how to advocate for themselves. So if you can encourage your students to take advantage of the resources that are available to them, and while none of us would prefer to offer these resources virtually, that's the environment that we're in now, but we are able to offer them. So we do offer counseling virtually. We are able to offer tutoring virtually. We have meetings with students on a regular basis. So they need to be their own best advocates, and we're here to help them and assist them in any way that we can.
One piece that maybe we didn't touch on enough is I know that some of the anxiety and stress came from just the academic load. So really just encouraging your student to have a conversation with their faculty and their advisor, I think is another way to just ease the transition. Some students are really passionate about what ESF has to offer, but maybe don't have the classes that are really getting them excited. I know that sometimes first year students feel that with, you know, a bigger general chemistry or a general biology course. And, you know, I really want to study conservation. So finding ways to kind of get into that academic niche by joining a club or even talking to faculty for research or being a TA and just getting to know them. Because on the flip side, a lot of the faculty were saying the same thing. I felt like I didn't get to know students. They weren't going to my open, you know, Zoom office hours or open whatever hours. So I think that it's really important that that could be all the difference is I'm not feeling connected, but that passion and that desire was harder to get at with especially a virtual environment. And again, that is harder in any college on the first couple semesters of kind of getting those general education courses out of the way. So, so I just wanted to touch on that. And I just wanted to just check out the Wi-Fi. Yes, it got resolved. And I think that was everything. So thank you again. And if you have any other questions, I will just have, I think all of their contact info was on a slide, but if you could just add that one more time and then we will close out. So thank you again. And next week is our final session. It is for, again, spring programming. I could push that link out real quick. And if you miss it, no worries. They are all on the Facebook page and in a variety of other locations. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. And it's because of you all that we want to help bridge the connection with and help make it smoother for your students. So thank you for helping your student out in advance.